The Trojan War.
The Trojan War was a war between the Greeks, ancients, and the city of Troy. This all happened after Paris of Troy took Helen from her husband, the king of Sparta, Menelaus. The beginning of the Trojan War began with a prophecy regarding the order of the Olympians and a divine love contest. Namely, many years before the war's beginning, both Poseidon and Zeus had fallen in love with Athena with the name Thetis. Both wanted Thetis to be his bride. However, they both backed off after they were told of the consequences that awaited them if they made such an action. This consequence was that if the synod were delayed with Zeus or his brothers, that a son would be born who would be stronger than his father and possess a weapon that would be much more powerful than the trident or the thunderbolt. To avoid this from happening, Zeus made it so that Thetis would have to marry King Peleus. After Thetis' marriage was figured out, Zeus held a big feast to celebrate Peleus and Thetis' marriage, where all of the gods were invited, except for the goddess of strife, Eris. The goddess was annoyed at the fact that she was turned away that before she left the gathering, she flung her gift amongst the crowd of guests. This gift was called the Apple of Discord, which was a golden apple with the words, "For the fairest," inscribed on it. Not too long after the apple was thrown, Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera began to fight about who should have the apple. Zeus was unable to decide by himself, so he sent the goddesses to Paris, the prince of Troy, to decide. Paris was unable to make a decision, so the goddesses started to bribe him. First, Hera offered to grant him political power and a throne if he were to choose her. Then, Athena offered him wisdom and skills in battle. Finally, Aphrodite promised Paris the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Without batting an eyelash, Paris chooses Aphrodite. However, Helen was already married to Menelaus, the king of Sparta. So, Paris, under the disguise of diplomatic mission, went to the Sparta to abduct Helen from her home so he could bring her back to Troy with him. Before Helen could look up to see Paris, she was shot with an arrow by Cupid or Eros and fell in love with Paris the moment she saw him. The Trojan War can be said to have started shortly after the abduction of Helen. Agamemnon was able to get other great heroes, Odysseus, Ajax, Nestor, and Achilles to join him on this adventure. The Trojan War, which was punctuated by battles and skirmishes, lasted 14 years. It finally ended when the Greeks retreated from camp and left behind a large wooden horse outside the gates of Troy. Inside Troy, there were many debates on if they should bring the wooden horse in, including unheeded warnings by Cassandra, Priam's daughter. Ultimately, the horse was brought into the city. The wooden horse was a plan made by Zeus to end the war. The wooden horse was designed to be hollow in the middle so that soldiers could hide inside and then was rolled in front of the city of Troy. After the Trojan horse was left at the gates, the Greeks sailed away from Troy to the islands of Tenedos, leaving behind one double agent named Sinon. He was able to convince the Trojans that the Greek had retreated from the war and that the horse was a parting gift, though it would ultimately give the Trojans a portion. However, once nighttime fell, the horse opened up and out came the Greek soldiers from the inside of the city. The Greeks were able to destroy the city of Troy and win the war. The surviving Greek heroes learned the hard way that gods never forget and hardly forgive, because even though they were victorious in the war, most of them were punished for their transgressions. In fact, only a handful of Greek soldiers made it back home, and that's with several adventures and exploits along the way. Even fewer will all come back to their homes because they were killed by their loved ones or they were exiled into oblivion. There were some cases where both incidents happened.